Adopt Technologies' The Elephant in the Room podcast brings you gigantic tech stories that inspire. These are creators, innovators, and change makers. Every episode, our guests embody one of the core values that makes Adopt so different from every other tech company. Much like an elephant, guests on this show are emotionally intelligent and ready to make a gigantic impact on the world. Thank you so much for listening to Elephant in the Room. I'm Carrie Pena. We have an incredible guest in studio, a hard woman to catch up with because you are very busy. Tammy Mcleod is CEO of Arizona's Flynn Foundation, a $300 million privately endowed nonprofit foundation dedicated to advancing biosciences, civic leadership, higher education, and the arts. As CEO, she oversees the Bioscience strategic roadmap for the state of Arizona. Tammy has such an incredible resume. I'll just pick out a few points if you would indulge me. She held several positions, including vice president at Arizona Public Service, where she worked for 23 years. And she's a member of the board of governors for TGen. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
I had to put my glasses on here to begin with to make sure I got all of that correct, because you certainly have an incredible resume, but you are also incredibly humble. Tell us first about your work with the Flynn Foundation.
I'd love to. I feel very privileged to do the work that I do at the Flynn Foundation. It has so many terrific aspects. The first thing that I love about it is that it's totally dedicated to Arizona. And I love Arizona, and it allows me to go from end to end and think of ways to strategically help our state. I work with an incredible team at the Flynn Foundation, a bunch of talented individuals who are very dedicated to their work and a lot of fun to be around. And I just feel that it's an incredible privilege to be able to do this work on behalf of the state and on behalf of the Flynn Foundation. It's the oldest foundation in Arizona and truly was endowed with a vision from Dr. Flynn and his wife Irene about making the state a better place to live. That's our mission, improving the quality of life in Arizona to benefit future generations. And that's a lot of fun to do on a daily basis.
Well, that's a heck of a mission statement. On this podcast, of course, sponsored by Adopt Technologies, we like to highlight inspirational people in the world of tech, diverse people in the world of tech. Can you tell us a little bit more about spearheading and funding and supporting these bioscience projects and the companies that you've supported and backed through the Flynn Foundation?
I'd love to. Really, more than half of our work is in the area of biosciences. And again, we do that on a statewide basis. So we are really looking for those areas where our funding can make a difference. Specifically, that's often in something we call translational research. How do you get a discovery that is currently in a laboratory to the bedside so that it can help a patient much quicker? And that may mean doing some early stage funding with a researcher, which we call like kind of seed grants, or it might be helping that researcher to get that discovery out of that laboratory through helping them build a board, helping them understand what their market really looks like, getting some professional advice to help that entrepreneur so that they can learn and grow and really make that a go in the state of Arizona. So then on the other side, we're also looking for entrepreneurs, early stage companies in diagnostics, in devices, in drugs that are making a difference and that we believe is something that really fits with our mission that will improve the quality of life in Arizona. So we do an open, what we call them biopreneurs, a biopreneur competition every year. And we have really terrific companies come forward with their early stage ventures. We bring in an outside panel to help us do the selection, to kind of look deeply at the science to make sure that it's valid. And we really take incredible pride in watching these companies then grow across the state and try to surround them with everything that we could do to make them successful.
What do you look for? You outlined some of the things that, the science, but there are a lot of people, I'm sure, who are requesting help from the Flynn Foundation, and a lot of qualified people in this world that you're in. What do you look for that makes someone stand out?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And there can be so many things because it is a diverse group that comes forward, which we're really pleased with. First off, the science has to be good science. And again, that's not something I'm going to be able to judge, but we get outside experts to tell us that. Secondly, on the research side, we're looking for people who are good collaborators. We know that if it's a single scientist in a single laboratory in a single institution, it's not going to go as far as if that's a person who's really collaborative with other scientists in outside organizations that can make it go further. And that's something that's really been core to Flynn in terms of supporting research. It's got to be collaborative across multiple organizations. And then on the entrepreneurship side, we are looking for people who are humble, people who will listen. An entrepreneur who is willing to take advice that they're given and to learn and grow with it. Maybe an entrepreneur who at some point in time has to say, I'm going to step aside and get a CEO to really take this to the next level. So there's a level of humility that's really important beyond the good science and the collaboration.
You know, as someone who's worked at your levels of success, and again, I outlined some of your career moments. So you worked 23 years at APS, you were the vice president. Can you talk about the importance of working collaboratively?
Absolutely. I think what I have learned in my career is that oftentimes the best ideas come from the most remote place that you would never expect to get them. And if you're not willing to collaborate and with really different people in really different settings, you'll bypass something. And so it's that bringing together of people and ideas that cause things to happen that otherwise wouldn't have. It's really important. And it's a different way of collaborating, but it's really kind of always being on the lookout for where that next great idea is going to come from. And it's not always the usual suspects.
And you brought up, humility, and I would take, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but some of that is, you're dealing with a lot of really smart people, scientists, researchers, but even at that level, we have to be able to put ego aside.
Absolutely. And, especially an early stage entrepreneur really has to be able to do that in order to launch their company and to get the right expertise in there that will take them to the next level. I think that's important in our careers as well, right? It's that being a good listener and realizing when you have to put that agenda aside and take the advice that will really help you accelerate to the next level.
Can you talk about what is on your radar screen, kind of specifically, why do you think Arizona is a good biotech, environment?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, we have tremendous higher education institutions in Arizona. Some of the discoveries that are coming out of the laboratories at the University of Arizona, at Arizona State University, at Northern Arizona University are really terrific. There are some premier researchers in those institutions, and I believe that they understand the need for collaboration. They're working outside, they're working to solve problems. And that's what it really takes. It's not just saying, I want to discover something, but I want to solve a problem. And then spending the time that's necessary on the front end to define that problem really, really well so that the solution almost, comes naturally. And then being willing to work with outside groups. I think Arizona demonstrates that time and time again. You look at here in Phoenix, organizations like Greater Phoenix Economic Council that are bringing in all of the cities and towns together with the local businesses, working towards that common goal of making this a great place to be and to work. I think that we're seeing early stage investments coming in. It's no secret that a lot of people are moving here. Yeah. And with that, a lot more talent. And we just have to be able to continue our welcoming attitude to bring those folks in and to fold them into the ecosystem right away so that we benefit from that.
What trend or forecast about tech are you following, or what are you particularly excited about?
Oh, that's a great question. And I would probably sit here all afternoon and tell you some of the things I get excited about. But, my background, having worked at Arizona Public Service, which, served me very well and was a great place to launch a career. I remain very interested in energy and energy solutions. I remain very interested in the data analytics pieces that are going on, not just in the energy market, but those data analytics that are really going to come into healthcare and help us analyze, population health, come up with some great solutions that'll benefit people. One of the discoveries that's come out of University of Arizona that we're very excited about, we've made a big announcement, is something called pharmacogenomics. And what this is it is an ability to dial common medications directly into your personal genome. So the standard of health in the past has really been developed kind of on a bell curve. And many of us don't fit a bell curve. We're on one side or the other. But with pharmacogenomics, they can really go in and dial into your specific DNA and find the medications that will work best for you and understand which ones to avoid because they won't work for you. So it's really exciting work. And it's so great to see it happening right here in Arizona. We'll definitely be a leader in this area.
Tammy, what personally inspires you? You do so much, not only with relation to your position at Flynn Foundation, but personally. I mean, you're a huge philanthropist. You give so much of your time and energy. You sit on a variety of boards. I can't even go through the whole list because there's so many. What inspires you to continue growing, even at this stage in your career where you're at the top?
Oh, I think there's so much to learn out there. And I have a great desire to continue learning. I love to build connections between people, between ideas, to see things occur that otherwise might not have if you didn't bring them together. I like to see those sparks where an idea takes off. And I'm interested in a lot of different areas, very interested in our environment. So I get involved with a lot of organizations, the Nature Conservancy, Desert Botanical Garden, places that are really, truly trying to promote conservation. I love working at the Flynn Foundation because we have this terrific group of Flynn scholars that are young polymath individuals.
Yeah.
They are so smart. They know so much. We're building civic leaders, and you can see those leaders go out and make a difference in their community. I mean, all of those things inspire me, and I take inspiration just from everywhere and everything, including things that other people do, music, art. There's not a weekend that you don't find me either in a gallery or at a performance or observing something like that, because I really get a lot of inspiration from that.
And I want to ask you a question that could seem simplistic, but I actually think it's kind of complex. Why is it important for people to continue to care about things that maybe we can't directly impact, but to learn and to care? You're talking about some very, big subjects here that don't always impact everyone today, right now, but you care so much about all of these areas.
It's a hard question. I think one of the things that I know is that sometimes when we talk about these big, hairy problems, it's scary. And it causes individuals to shut down because it is one of those things that, what could I do about that? But the reality is it needs to be communicated differently. And we need to say that, that big, scary problem, it really does boil down. And in some way, it affects you, it affects your family, it affects your home. And we need to boil those down because people can get their arms around that and understand that, these big problems really do translate to immediate issues. And once we focus on those and we communicate it in the way that doesn't make it so audacious, but makes it really down to the local level, I think it causes people to care. And hopefully, I can continue to be a voice to do that.
Do you feel that the playing field is more level now for women in tech?
I think we have a long way to go. I think the playing field is leveling, but having been at South by Southwest last week in so many of the tech conferences and listening to so many of the panels, there were certainly a lot more men there than there were women. And so I think it is up to the women who are there to reach back and to partner and to bring along that team of women that they see. I think mentorship is really important. I think it's important in every aspect of life in terms of what you want to do. And I think it's really important to identify those people ahead of you who you can watch and learn from, but also for those people ahead of you to turn around and reach back and to bring the others along.
I really think that's why my career in broadcasting happened, because I had incredible mentors. And, Christy Paul from CNN turned out to be one of my best friends, but she was so supportive of me. Even when I was a kid reporter who had no idea what I was doing, she said, keep going, you can do it.
Well, she definitely saw a lot of promise, and it certainly has come to fruition.
Thank you for saying that. It's very kind. And just as we wrap things up, I just would be curious to hear from you, either personally or in your role at the Flynn Foundation, what concerns you most as we slowly, hopefully, begin to emerge from the pandemic?
Well, one of the things that I am concerned about that as we emerge from the pandemic is really understanding the toll that it has taken on people. I think that is something that we do need to raise an awareness of. Certain people respond differently to being closed off. Certain people thrive in that environment, right? If you're a person who's really easily integrates your work with your home anyway, and you might be a little bit of an introvert, pandemic's a perfect place to be, right?
Yeah.
But for those others who really thrive on that personal interaction with others on a daily basis in person, who are more separators between home and office, it's really taken a toll. And that's not readily evident just by looking at someone. And so what are those ways that we can get that early warning system when someone's not doing well? How do we reach out and help those people? How do we figure out what is the right mix of in-person versus virtual? I mean, the convenience of virtual is evident, and there's a lot of times and places that will be the preferred method. But if you look at some of the young workforce, I'm worried about them. They are coming into a new job and they're single-threaded through one person in a company that they see on Zoom. And how do they build the relationships? And especially if they're coming into a new environment.
Yeah.
And so I think we've really got to pay attention to that.
Isolation.
Absolutely.
And this is perhaps a discussion for a different day, but I know you are concentrating some of your efforts in the mental health space.
That's true. And I think it'll be necessary.
Tammy Mcleod, thank you so very much for being here. I really appreciate it.
It's been a joy. Thank you.
Now it's time to talk about what we heard with Brett Helgeson, the CEO of Adopt Technologies. Tammy is such an inspiration, and I think one of the real reasons why you guys from Adopt Technologies wanted to sponsor this podcast, to tell the stories of inspirational leaders.
That is a fact. And the one thing that I really drew out of that discussion with Tammy is how there are so many similarities between her and the successful leaders and podcast guests that we've had on the show. Certainly you start out with humble by nature. They all believe in the team that surrounds them. They surround themselves with people that have diverse sets of thoughts, which is absolutely what this is all about. And then on top of that, they are constantly searching for knowledge. And they're just humble about the fact that they know there's so much they don't know, and that they seek out learning on a daily basis.
What was your main takeaway from what she said?
The one thing that really struck me is, as a business leader, it's certainly you always want to inspire and instill passion and have everybody striving to achieve the same mission and vision. And when you're in a product or service business, certainly you can get a ton of people on board. But at the same point in time, there's still a lot of people that it's absolutely a job. They might really enjoy their work, but they may not be as passionate about it. One thing that really inspired me about Tammy and her work at the Flynn Foundation and all the incredible work they do for the state of Arizona and entrepreneurs is the fact that everybody there is so passionate about Arizona and helping others and serving the community. And it honestly makes you reevaluate sometimes, like, gosh, I wish there was even something bigger than me that I could get 100% of the people on board with the same level of passion that I have for something. And at Adopt, we do a great job, but still, it's a daily effort. I've never been a part of a business or a community that, at least on an ongoing basis, that's fully focused on achieving one major goal and initiative for a lifetime like a foundation does.
Since you're the CEO, how does listening to an interview like we just heard from Tammy and other guests that we've had on this podcast, how does that impact you? And how does that make you want to become a better leader?
Well, I think one thing it does is it validates for me that a lot of the things that we do, that I do as a leader, are on the right path. At the same point in time, it just really exposes areas, especially, relationships, being outgoing, really trying to seek so many different perspectives regardless of the circumstance, because that's where true education begins, when you're able to hear things from another perspective.
And just as we close things out here, what has it been like? We're a few episodes into the season. So what has it been like for you sponsoring a podcast like this and helping to elevate a multitude of voices?
Well, first and foremost, it's easy to do this when you have a wonderful team like yourself and Nick and the Felice Agency helping us accomplish this. But really, it is just wonderful to get these great, brilliant, successful people in here sharing their story and educating so many people on what they do and how they do it, how they got to where they are. And you may not have otherwise heard that story. So that, to me, is what's wonderful.
Well, congratulations, because a lot of folks are tapping into the podcast. It was featured on Yahoo Finance and various other platforms. So congratulations on doing this with intentionality and with purpose that I think is very pure. So we appreciate you being here, and thanks to all of you for listening and watching. I'm Carrie Pena. Take good care.